Welcome back to the Bryan Devore Connection. I'm your host, Bryan Devore. Things that people don't think about when it comes to avoiding financial disasters. All right, well, hopefully I got your attention because none of us want a financial disaster. So here to talk to us about some of those key points are some wonderful ladies from Aurora Wealth Advisors, and they are Leah and Cristina. Thank you for joining me today.
Thanks for having us.
Yeah, we're happy to be here.
Great, fantastic. So we're going to get into that topic in just a moment. Leah, how did you get into the world of financial planning?
Oh, I was actually pre-med, and somebody I started working for and running his office was doing this, and I thought, God, he's helping people, which is exactly why I wanted to go into medical school. And the more I got involved in it, the more I got to see that financial consulting and planning is really helping people through all sorts of life transitions. Many of us have had to go to college, and we've had to start new jobs, and we've gotten married, and some of us divorced, and having kids, and aging parents. And through that whole process, to have somebody who's kind of on your side, who's understanding you and being able to help you facilitate that is what I saw. And I was like, that's pretty cool. So developed a passion for it and never looked back. So,
that's awesome.
Yeah. So it's helping people, it's helping people solve problems and just being a relationship that they can depend on is why I like it.
That steady rock in their lives.
Yeah. People, loving people.
So when it comes to estate planning or any kind of concept that I'm discussing with my clients, I feel that stories are really more powerful in helping people to understand why it's important. And I actually have a personal story that I went through myself with my own family. My dad became ill and he didn't have a trust. And even though his financial advisor and myself had told him, you need a trust, he didn't have one. It was important because it was his third marriage. She had children from a previous life, and he did as well, a blended family. So they ended up being able to get his trust done 6 weeks before he died. And it wasn't really indicative of his actual wishes and what he really wanted. They didn't have enough time to have those conversations that are important in what you want after you pass away. And unfortunately, it's left his wife, who's still around, questioning what he actually wanted. And that's caused just a lot of stress and anxiety. The other part of that is having to slap together something really quickly. They ended up having to go through a probate process, which took years and lots of time and energy that she didn't have because she lost the love of her life. So a lot of what I try to do is just help people, tell these stories and see, where it could go wrong. And, a lot of my passion is to help people prevent, those types of situations because, death is, emotionally devastating. It doesn't have to be financially devastating if we've planned for it. I want to give people that room to be able to focus on what's really important instead of having to deal with the business of death.
Yeah, I think also one of the things that where we step in and have a huge passion around is the preparation and conversation. To her point, is there's a lot of emotions when it comes to who you love and how you want to care for them if you're not here. We work with amazing estate planning attorneys, but most of them will ask decisions. These are the questions. These are the things we need to legally document. And so there's some sort of an underlying, I think, expectation that some of these things have been talked through. Yeah. And many times they hadn't been. So that's part of the process that both Cristina and I really have a passion for is being able to have these conversations and kind of paint some pictures with the family before it's in a devastating time when you're dealing with such emotion.
Yeah. I like what you said. I'm going to remember that. Death is emotionally devastating. It doesn't have to be financially devastating. I'm going to remember that. Speaking of finances and could be devastating, taxes and how taxes can impact planning for intergenerational wealth transfers.
One of my favorite concepts. I do a lot of it. I think one of my favorite stories that I helped a family through is we were able to effectively transfer during Grandma's lifetime almost $1 million of tax deferred money over to Roths, pay zero taxes on it because she was in a retirement home and having long-term health care, which is deductible. So in essence, she ended up passing over $1 million net worth to the next generation. Wow. Completely, never be taxed, not like it's just tax-free as the step-up in basis, but then the next generation is never going to use all that money because they also saved for theirs. So this is going to be about a 3 different generational kind of wealth transfer that we did.
That's amazing.
And it's people don't understand that the decisions that you're making today in the way that you position your assets, how you save, how you spend, is going to have long-term tax implications. You
Right.
know, our CPAs tell us like what's going on this year, and
Yeah.
you know, what did our choices do for our tax year last year? But very, very few times do we have the chance to look ahead at the decisions that we're making.
Right.
And I think that's really important, because if you're not being tax wise, you can erode the wealth that you've built for yourself and for your families once you start passing it.
Right.
And that's also part of the estate planning is when people have lots of wishes on who they want to gift money to. You know, it's if they want to give money to charity, well, what kind of assets should they give money to? You know, I had a couple who late life marriage, and she was going to give her children a certain sum upon if she died first, and then she was going to leave her spouse with the rest of it. Well, when we started looking at it, it was completely backwards in the tax efficiency, and she was going to leave her spouse with about over a double tax bill year after year.
Wow.
So all we did was redirect the assets, and it actually expanded the amount of gift that she was going to leave to everybody,
That's
which was
amazing.
fun. Yeah.
So that's when we talk about people may be smart and they may be financially savvy with how they spend and save, but they're not going to know how to do that.
Those nuances. No, not at all. So it's fun. This is the stuff that we get excited about, is those problem solving.
Right.
Yeah, those are the puzzles we get to play with. Is figuring out what's important, and for some people it is they want to leave a legacy, and so we get to help them find solutions and strategies to help them restructure their gifts in a tax efficient way. And sometimes it's more tax efficient for them to pay the taxes. Sometimes it's more tax efficient for their beneficiaries. But we look at that. We don't leave any stone unturned.
Right. Well, and that leads to the third point, which we're going to talk about, is planning, proper planning, which is kind of what we're all talking about, and communicating with people. Talk about that.
Going back to the story that I told with my own family, they waited too long to have the conversation about what their wishes were. And so when I'm having conversations with my clients about estate planning, I say, make it known what you want, because you can even put it in a legal document, and it can be very, like to the letter of the law of like, this is exactly what I want to happen. But having that conversation with your family helps them to understand why you've made those decisions,
The emotions behind it.
Right, exactly, because they might feel like, oh, well, why did this person get this house and I got this house? Like I really wanted that one. It's like there's a reason behind it. It's not of malintent, but if you don't have that conversation, you leave your loved ones trying to guess what your intentions were. So just telling them can alleviate a lot of that stress.
Yeah.
Well, and I think also including some families are very open with their communication and others are not, and either is fine. But to Christina's point, you can either communicate what your intentions and your wishes are so that any of the questions and concerns can be brought to the surface before the family is dealing with it. The other thing I find to be really powerful is having structured family meetings. And this is where we learn a lot of these questions and concerns and what the lay of the land might look like once the parents or the first generation passes, what kind of things might happen in the interrelationships, between the beneficiaries and the families.
Right.
So I always joke, my parents keep putting me as the executor of their estate. I'm like, I own a business, I have 4 children, and
You're
I
right.
don't live near you.
Right.
Why
I am
are
not
you
the best choice for
choosing
this.
me?
Right.
And so I keep telling them I'm going to hire out a lot of the jobs, but we've talked about it. I know what their wishes are. They know where my limits are,
Yeah.
and it's agreed upon. There's no surprise. At least we hope not. But
Right.
so that communicating, I think, is extremely important.
Right.
And then it lets you plan differently once you communicate and get your wishes and your intentions out of, and even just planning for what kind of transition that you want. If it's retirement or planning for the kids' education. Sometimes we find partners don't have the same viewpoint on what things should look like.
Yeah.
And money is one of the number one causes of stress in
Absolutely.
marriages and relationship. So sometimes having somebody who's kind of a coach, kind of an advocate, and sometimes a mediator in those conversations can take stress off of the family relationships to have those, that communication
No,
and a
absolutely.
plan in place.
Yeah.
So,
Having the plan, communicating it, and having the professionals who can really guide them along the way. So their information's on screen. You're going to need them when it comes to planning and communicating with your loved ones. Aurora Wealth Advisors, Leah and Cristina, their information's on screen with their phone number, their website. If you're listening on the podcast, obviously you can't see it, but it's in the caption. Thank you so much for coming today and educating us on all the things, probably just the tip of the iceberg when it comes to financial planning, but the things that people really need to watch out for.
Yeah, thank you for having us. This
My
is
pleasure.
wonderful.
Yeah.
Appreciate it.
Good to be here. Thanks.